Welcome to Care, Share and Inspire, our Climate Wisdom Studio live from the Climate Conference 28 in Dubai, UAE. We bring together experts from science, politics and spirituality to explore new avenues to deal with the unfolding climate disaster. Myself, I'm Golo Pilz. I'm the advisor on renewable energy to the Brahma Kumaris, and I will conduct tonight's panel discussion. This is the sixth day of this climate conference, and the conference is deep into assessing the carbon reductions which are necessary and how much the countries will pledge and how much is needed. Interestingly, last days a discussion has flared up how fast and if at all fossil fuels have to be phased out. The science is crystal clear. We have to leave gas, oil and coal as in the ground and not use it at all. In addition, a recent study by the World Economic Forum highlighted the fact that the transition towards clean technology and so-called net zero emissions could benefit the world economy with a staggering amount of 43 trillion US dollars. That's a huge amount. So it would be even a big business if we go green. Isn't that interesting? On the other hand, fossil fuel companies are stepping up their drilling while barely investing in renewable. So there are mixed signals from this COP right now, and we have to see what will be the outcome. And of course, we will keep you posted. I'm very glad to have today three distinguished speakers here at our panel. Left to me is Apurva Bose. She's the Indian Program Coordinator, Global Initiative G20, and a United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, UNCCD. If you're working at the COP, you have to learn all the abbreviations. You hold a master's degree in international law, and your area of expertise range from environmental and humanitarian law to development, communication, and program coordination. You are an actress in Malayalam films, a singer, a voice artist, and a classical trained dancer. Welcome very much to our panel.
Thank you so much.
We have with us also Alan Bigelow. He is the Program and Science Director of the non-profit Solar Cooker International, whose mission is to improve human health, economic well-being, women's empowerment, and the environment by promoting climate-friendly solar cooking devices. At Solar Cooker International, he leads the programs in building capacity and in evaluating solar cooker performance. He also advocates for solar thermal cooking at the United Nations and holds a PhD in physics. And with us is also Sister Jayanti Kriplani. She's the additional administrative head of the Brahma Kumaris, a spiritual organization with more than 5,000 meditation centers in India and 800 abroad. The Brahma Kumaris is accredited to the United Nations for Climate Change since 2009, and Sister Jayanti has been since then to most of the climate conferences. She's also our main representative to the United Nations. Welcome, Sister Jayanti. So let us start the panel discussion. Apurva, I heard this is your first climate conference you're attending. And there has been as per today's figures, there have been a record 84,000 delegates registered at this climate conference. It's quite amazing. I heard the first climate conference started with 8,000 or 6,000 delegates. So this is quite a huge number. Hundreds of programs are going on daily, and the input is almost overwhelming. This is seen by some as a sign of success, but others also call it a dangerous distraction. So many people. To have to fulfill the mission to combat climate change. You are a communication expert, and can you navigate the hundreds of programs per day going on at the COP? Do you feel this is the right format to achieve consensus among the nations to combat climate change and find rapid action?
Thank you so much for the question, and more so for inviting me. It's an absolute honor to be here. Now, again, this is my first COP, as you mentioned, and I walked in today feeling extremely overwhelmed at the kind of information, the events, the hundreds of side events that happens on a daily basis. So regarding information overload, I absolutely agree with you. I'm with you on that. I think there is a huge information overload, but then Another way to think about it is also that climate change is a highly convoluted challenge, right? It's something which is highly multidisciplinary in nature as well. So I feel like when it comes to climate crisis, there will be, or I think it's inevitable that there will be information overload, considering you need so many stakeholders to be a part of that conversation. So with that, I agree that this is something which is inevitable. But regarding the format, and although this is the first COP that I'm attending, I have been observing COPs and I have worked for other COPs in the past as well. But what I always feel is that with the sheer number of people that's coming and the conversations that usually happens in silos. So there's one, amazing conversation that's happening in a certain pavilion for a set of audience that probably already knows the solution, that already knows the discussions and the challenges that exist within that specific topic. So is it really translating into actual meaningful engagements? This is something which I have reservations about, and I really hope that the current COP presidency has thought this through and sort of connects these silos together to create a platform that's meaningful and that's not superficial in nature. So I do agree that this is definitely one of the tested and tried formats when it comes to a conversation or a conference of this scale. But I think it's also important to have clear objectives and a shared vision amongst the people that's attending, the delegates. So definitely something to ponder over and something that I have been thinking about as well.
That's a very interesting insights you're giving to us. Some say that this COP should go beyond discussions now and in implementation and action. And so let us see the next week and see the final documents which will be agreed upon, because there we can see really if this big conference can agree on the action. Ellen, we met many times at the climate conferences, and I always remember that you enthusiastically promote the usage of solar cookers. You hold a PhD in physics and had exciting 15 years research at Columbia University Medical Center on particle accelerator and lasers. So it's a different area altogether. What brought you to solar energies? And can you see a positive trend at these COPs towards the renewables? Renewables are out since a long time. Investment has to increase. Some people say we need to triple the renewable energy capacity around the globe. So do you see a positive trend at this COP towards renewables?
Thank you, Golo. I'm delighted to be here. It's a pleasure to talk to you about these issues and topics. I have a PhD in physics, and I had started my career in particle accelerators. There's a radiation biology program that I was involved in. And when people hear that I moved from that to solar cookers, they might be very surprised. However, a solar cooker has many basic physics properties in it. And so I've been overjoyed to be able to talk about these basic properties, materials, reflection, transmission, heat retention, etc., for the benefit of so many people on our planet. And so this transition I've actually welcomed. And what brought me to it? Well, I've been concerned about the environment and the climate issues and was looking for solutions. So this goes back to about the time when I started working at Columbia. I co-founded a group that was a group of musicians that used solar power to power up the performance, basically. We were a solar-powered eco-rock band, and we were specializing in learning about climate issues and climate solutions and broadcasting that to an audience. Well, that led to another opportunity to tour across India in 2009 on what was called a Climate Solutions Road Tour, which was extraordinary. And we were doing this with the Indian Youth Climate Network, IYCN. And the whole idea was to spotlight climate solutions from India and then deliver this to the COP that was held that year in Copenhagen. So this was an eye-opening experience. a few years later, I was invited on a solar trek in Nepal, where at high altitude, many, the 24 trekkers had all of the meals prepared with portable solar cookers. And this is something that I had to share this story with the world. So that's how I met Solar Cookers International, was at an opportunity to speak at a conference. Well, advance forward from there, I was offered a job and I had to take it. It was a very exciting transition. And the second part of your question about trends, through all of this time, I've been aware of the unawareness of climate change. And I would say that that is definitely a positive trend, in that the awareness level has certainly gone up. We don't have to talk about climate change and what it is. People know, for the most part. Another positive trend, I would say, and it is that people are conveying the urgency more than ever before. And I'm saying that in a positive way, because we need that to be heard so that we can act on it. In the past, there had been, well, we understand it's urgent, but now it's a dire need. Finally, I wanted to point out that there is political will now, even more than before. We're seeing in the nationally declared contributions, the NDC documents from countries, a lot more language that is going to harmonize with what we do. And so that opens up opportunities for funding, for projects. And so we're now able to capitalize on those opportunities. So these are some of the, I would call these positive trends.
This is a wonderful story. First time I hear a solar-powered rock band brought you to India and brought you to Solar Cooker. What a wonderful story. What a journey, you know? And I agree with you. I'm also working in solar cooking systems. We have bigger systems, community system, and it's complex.
Yes.
It's pretty complex. I fully agree with you. Mr. Jeyanti, a totally different question. At this conference, the noise levels are sometimes hard to tolerate. Today I was in Pavilion, and there was somebody speaking, and there was a temporary wall, and on the other side, something different was going on, and I thought, okay, what's going on? To actually that party, but the other party was making another speech on the other side. There's a lot of talk, but apparently a lack of the need of action to save the planet. In yoga practices, on the other side, we emphasize a lot the power of silence. It is considered to be one of the most powerful states the mind can actually enter. And it is also supposed to give an incredible strength. Can you share about the power of silence and how such practice could help at the conference?
Thank you for the question, Golo. Very important question. And yes, I've totally understood what you were sharing. I was at a conference yesterday, and the person speaking in the next section, the partition section, it was so loud, I could hardly never mind let myself think, but I couldn't hear myself speak even. So that's absolutely true. But the yoga power that you've mentioned and the power of silence that you've spoken of is a little bit different to what's normally thought about. In Raj Yoga, when we meditate, we don't stop our thoughts. But what we find is that when you move your thoughts onto a very subtle, elevated level, the speed of thought slows down and the spaces between the thoughts become longer. And the space is not empty, but the space is that space in which, in silence, you're actually experiencing the original inner state of being of the soul. So you experience the peace, the love, the truth, the joy. And so it's very powerful. And what I found is that if you've practiced this, that you can get to that state of silence very, very quickly. It's not a question of sitting in meditation for hours to experience this, but even within a few moments, not just minutes, a few moments, you can really touch that connection within your being and come to that awareness. And so I feel that what is needed in this world of noise pollution is the power of silence, which is able to share with people that purity, that love, that peace that every soul craves for. Why is it that we want to go away on holiday, want to go to the beach, want to go to the mountains? It's because we know deep inside that we can find that space and that quiet. But of course, you go to the beach and then you put on your music and you destroy the silence that's there. And even in the woods, you do that. But really, every soul craves for that comfort, that rest that comes when you're at peace within. And so meditation and the practice that we have definitely gives people that experience. And not just for yourself, but if you're meditating in a group, and you might not announce, by the way, I'm meditating, but you're just in silence, and you're part of the group, but your contribution is a different one, not just in sound, but you're sharing those vibrations of peace. And of course, if the whole group meditates, the energy multiplies. And I do believe that at this moment of time, people really need to experience this so that then they're able to gain the inner power to be able to accomplish what is necessary. Capacity building is part of this. One's able to develop one's inner capacity through silence.
Very lovely what you said. Experiences rest in inner peace. I feel sometimes this going to the blue zone or the green zone can be quite exhaustive. You listen here, you listen there, and after some time you say, okay, I have enough, I have to leave the place. And luckily we practice early morning meditation and charge ourselves up and prepare for these kind of events. So I feel a regular meditation practice would be quite helpful for the delegates. And interestingly, for the first time, we have a faith pavilion also at the COP, and we have regular meditations also there. So let us hope that this vibration slowly is being picked up by the delegates. Apurva, you work at the UN body to fight desertification. And this COPs takes place, interestingly, in the middle of a desert. We yesterday drove a bit out, and the moment you come out here, it totally changes, it becomes hardly anything grows. And I know that deforestation and also reforestation is a big topic here at the COP. Also in India, I've been involved in some reforestation project, which came up very difficult because we planted some trees, then the goat came and ate the little tree sapling, then we put a mud guard around it. Then humans came and stole the mud guard because they could sell it, then the cow came, so it was a constant battle, the reforestation. So this is also a big topic here at the COP because the forest cover is an incredibly important carbon sink also. Can you share a bit your work at the UNCCD? And are we on track to make the planet green again? What are the latest trends?
Thank you for the question again. So I'll say a little bit about the work that I do and about the organization that I work for, and then move to the second part of your question about are we on the right track. So I am part of this organization called G20 Global Land Initiative, which is part of UNCCD. And we were born at the Riyadh Virtual Summit, the G20 Leaders Summit. And the idea or the global ambition is to reduce degraded land by 50% by 2040. So that's the huge ambitious goal that we have and that we work towards as well. So, but we're also much more than this ambitious goal. So it's also about protecting the precious ecosystems of the world. And what we also do to work towards that is showcasing success stories from around the world, which is extremely important. Engaging not just with the governments, but also with the private sector, which I think is extremely important as well. Empowering civil societies. We engage with private sector, with faith groups, and that's how we chanced upon Brahmakumaris as well. Youth, extremely important stakeholder that we engage with, women and farmers as well. So we work with a wide group of stakeholders and we try to empower the work that they stand for or the causes that they stand for. And finally, which is something which I am very closely involved with, is capacity building. And every time I say capacity building, the first question I get is, okay, but what capacity are you building? So what we really try to do is train people to understand what ecological restoration is all about, because I think this is a term that's constantly used now, but then not many people actually know what ecosystem or ecological restoration really is. So we do trainings around the world. We are producing a massive online course on agriculture. So we do a lot of different kinds of trainings and capacity building workshops from across the world with different stakeholders and for different stakeholders. So this is essentially, in a nutshell, what we do with the ambitious goal in mind. Having said that, are we on the right track? I think there's a long way to go for us to be on the right track. Every now and then, when we have the G20 meetings or when we have meetings to really take stock of where are we right now, we leave the meeting with, of course, a ray of hope, because so many different stakeholders are coming together with the shared vision of achieving this goal, but also this sense of, are we really going to achieve this goal by 2040? Because it might seem like a lot of years in front of us, but it's actually right now, and we really need to take action now. So yes, I think there's definitely hope. But action needs to be taken now for us to be on the right track. And we also have a land and drought resilience pavilion at the COP, where we're actively involved with. We're trying to engage with as many stakeholders as possible to really make people understand that land is important. We live on land. We need land for literally everything that we do. So yes, that's definitely our agenda, and we really hope to achieve it.
Yeah, I heard also that the Amazon is under quite some stress and a lot of deforestation has gone on there. But very interestingly, I think there is some indigenous people like Bishnois.
Yes.
And I heard once the story that they are planting trees, they make this water bodies, catchment areas for the rain, and they consider the tree to be sacred. So I feel there's a lot of wisdom also with the indigenous people, because they take care. So if we learn a bit from them and reverse the flow of information, take information from them, I think a lot could be learned.
I think it's important to marry that traditional knowledge, which I think is very, very important, with the technology that we have today. So, but what we often don't do is to go back to where we come from and the traditional knowledge that we already have. So rightly mentioned.
Alan, you often work with the less privileged people in poor regions of the world. Income is low. Fossil fuels are often quite costly. Either fossil fuels or firewood is very costly. And at the same, deforestation is a big issue also. And I know you have initiated campaigns to bring solar cookers to those sections of societies. Can you share some success story as how the introduction of the cookers has given clean and cheap cooking device to the people, but maybe also generates income, because that's another big issue?
Yes, thank you, Golo. And on this theme of the need for reforestation, that is something that is one of our main focal areas, because about 1/3 of the people on our planet, 2.3 billion people, are still cooking over open fires every day. And these are polluting fires, but this is damaging to our forests with the cutting of trees. So this is one of our main focal areas. But at SCI, we have 3 buckets of activity in our strategic plan. We have research, we have strengthening capacity and advocacy. In our strengthening of the capacity aspect, we are having some success stories. And this is difficult work. It's sensitive work because of the populations that we're working with. And in these communities, we're finding that with some best practices being applied, we're able to make progress and traction. Just a couple of examples of those best practices. One is for local manufacturing. And so there's a sense of ownership in the community itself. We have an annual round of work in Kenya, where we are having cookers built in Kenya by Kenyans using material available in Kenya. And these are solar ovens that are then brought to Kakuma refugee camp, which is in northern Kenya, in a very barren area where about 200,000 people are living. And so the stress on that area is at a very high level, specifically for cooking fuel. However, meanwhile, it's tremendously sunny there. So it's an opportunity for solar cooking. So we are finding that by working with the best practices, also including training refugees how to solar cook by refugees who had learned how to solar cook the previous year. So we are involving the participants. We say we work with each other on this initiative, and these the training sessions happen in the local language, and there's a high level of trust. And I have to emphasize that these are women who are doing this work, and their excitement over a technology that can save them money and save them food, because often these refugees are needing to barter their own food rations to get fuel to cook the rest of their food, which is a terrible situation to be in. So when refugees are finding that they can actually save food, save money by using the sun as their energy for cooking, that's a tremendous opportunity for a version of income. Just want to touch base slightly for a moment on another initiative that we have going the past 2 years as a consultant. We worked in an initiative in Yemen, a conflict area, also an area where it's very barren, so the desertification is also a great issue. There was a livelihoods-based project, and this involved building solar cookers and solar dryers to bring these to the communities for income generation. And so along that pathway, you have manufacturing, that's creating jobs. You have training, so the people who are doing the work are getting paid. And then the users of these technologies can use them to bake goods, to sell in the market. And then finally for the farmers, value addition through solar drying is having a significant change. Yeah. So we're delighted to see that, but it's a delicate work that has to happen. It has to be introduced in a way that's appropriate, and we're learning as we go, but we're excited to see some success.
So it's a win-win situation for everybody.
I think so. Yes, yeah. Yes.
I have a solar cooking box since 20 years, and at Brahma Kumaris we always have 50 solar cookers in stock, and we distribute them also and try to promote them. But it's not easy to change the cooking habits of people. It's a delicate process. I'm fully aware about it, but the cookers are wonderful. We can even make bread and cake. And the food tastes very nice because it's a slow cooking process. So we're very much happy with our solar cookers, and it's a wonderful gadget. And it's so easy and cheap, you know, it's not so super complicated. Once the design is good, it's all right. Mr. Jeyanti, how to become climate positive? It's a new term which I found, be climate positive. The whole climate change narrative is loaded quite negatively. You know, people see it as a huge threat towards their life and often try to ignore the whole matter completely, as it seems so big and unresolvable. On the other hand, it is said a crisis is also a chance, a wake-up call to act. A crisis is also a signal towards us that something is wrong, we're doing something wrong, some of our actions, something is missing, and it has to be rectified. From a spiritual perspective, what's going wrong and how to become climate positive?
Mm-hmm. I think I understood from spirituality what was going wrong first, and then much later came to the aspect of environment and climate change. And what I'd understood was that the reason why we suffer, it's totally a spiritual answer, but it makes sense in the world out here. If I have negative thoughts and feelings, for example, anger or ego or greed or attachment, never mind what I'm doing to anyone else, I'm suffering first and foremost. My anger is creating upheaval in my body and is leaving a huge impact on my mind and my feelings also. And that goes to all the other negative feelings and emotions that we go through. So extend that outside and you see how ego and greed are being played out in today's scenario. And you understand that that's what's the cause of all the problems that human beings are facing. And so, yes, then it gets multiplied with geopolitical stories and all sorts of things, but the essential cause of sorrow and suffering in today's world is a spiritual one. It's because we haven't understood that we are spiritual beings, and in the awareness of the physical form, all these negative things come. And as soon as I come to the awareness of my own spiritual identity, I connect with the truth, the love, the peace that is within. And it's very beautiful. So you don't have to fight the anger and ego, but you just keep enhancing and extending that experience of the peace and joy that's within. And you share that through your actions. So that's the starting point. And when you do this, you also realize that it's not just harm that you're causing humans, but there's a huge amount of harm that we've caused all the other species. Just think about how many species have become extinct because of our behavior and our activity. But also in a very simple way, if I see an animal and I say, oh, how cute, how lovely, and then the next day I'm cutting it up. And I think in today's world, you buy everything in a sanitized little package, and you don't realize that what is in that packet was actually a living creature with 4 legs. So we've become disconnected not only with ourselves, but disconnected with nature and all forms of life. And so coming back to the awareness of who I am and my connection with nature and other creatures definitely makes me turn to something like plant-based diet. And then the other thing that happens is that as you meditate and take time for reflection and just look at the cause of, cause and result, action and the results of action, then you begin to realize that your choices are going to either create more happiness or more sorrow for you and for others. And so from the morning through to the night, there's an inner conscience that's speaking to you. We'd shut it down. We didn't want to hear it. We didn't want to listen to it. So it stopped speaking. But now you're allowing it to speak to you and you engage with it. And so you're making choices through the whole day. And that makes a huge difference.
Climate change is the teaching point of towards us humans to bring out the best and develop, raise ethics and values. How nice. I just wanted to mention, I almost forget about the deforestation, because we are in Rajasthan and Brahma Kumaris has also embarked on Rajasthan is one of the semi-desert states of India, and deforestation was a huge issue there, and Brahma Kumaris has also started a huge tree plantation program called Kalpataru, and we planted already 2 million trees. It's with an app. You can make a photo and you can become a member of Kalpataru. And it's quite successful, and we're looking forward to roll out on a very, very large scale and engage youth, especially also schools, awareness, training, education, and so on. And this brings me to my next question, Apurva. You have been engaged a lot with the younger generation. You're still young. So this climate problem is a gigantic problem, and often activists, they withdraw or then develop anxiety or even burnout. It's quite a big problem. I met a psychologist in Oxford, and she told me her clinic is full of young students which don't see really a future. Can you share some stories of hope which keeps you going, but also maybe can function as a motivation for our listeners and our audience?
Thank you. And I think it's a very, very important question in today's world of social media and information overload in general, because you open social media and Instagram is an app that our generation predominantly use, and every second story or every second post is something which is alarming or triggering, which is exactly what you pointed out earlier. So absolutely, I think especially with climate change and the kind of alarming stories that comes out of climate change can be very triggering and emotionally very frustrating for the younger generations. But having said that, every day I see so many positive stories from young people, from school children who are doing such fabulous work, which also gives everyone that ray of hope to do better, to be better, and to also live with that understanding that you just need to be one with nature. And as Sister Jayanti just rightly pointed out as well, and to find that inner peace, I think for me, these motivating stories, they work a lot. And recently, I had actually attended a conference called GLF, Global Landscapes Forum, and there was a huge turnout from young people from across the world. And I think close to 800, 900 young people were there to discuss, okay, what can we do and what's the next step? How can we actually get the situation under control? And to hear these different thoughts from young indigenous community members, from policymakers and politicians and parliamentarians. And I think it was such a beautiful experience for me. And maybe just to point out two stories that I recently came across during the conference, which was truly inspiring for me. I think, is a young person from India. His name is Bodhisattva Kandarao, and it was such a simple idea. So all you have to do is put soil, seeds in a sock, and the mission that the person started is called Magic Socks. So you fill it up, and then you just basically like wrap it up and basically fling it wherever. And when the germination, of course, starts when it hits water. So I think it's such a beautiful idea, and in that specific district in Maharashtra, the forest cover was increased by 80% just because of this one beautiful idea, which I found to be extremely inspiring and motivating. Another story was from Chennai. This young person started collecting plastics from the beach and collected over 800 kg of plastic waste from the Chennai beach. And I think these are stories which really motivates me, and I'm sure motivates a lot of young people. And maybe just to wrap up what I just mentioned about these motivating stories and young people doing fabulous work across the world, is that a lot of times the frustration also comes from the place where when young people are involved in huge conferences, it's always seen as a separate youth event. We're never given, the center stage at a major event. So there's the youth summit before I think Dubai had the youth summit before the COP. But why aren't more young people given the center stage at the main event? It shouldn't be seen as a separate event. It shouldn't be seen as a separate conversation. I think youth perspectives are very important, regardless of the sphere, because it is the young people ultimately that has to deal with the repercussions of what we do today. So I think that othering is something which we need to be conscious and mindful about, and this is something that I think is very frustrating in a lot of these huge conferences. I hope that changes, and I hope that youth definitely gets the center stage as they truly deserve.
It's also reflecting the positive news and not get carried away by the negative news, and a bit sort of look into your mind. What are you thinking and what are you actually absorbing? What you're allowing to get in. And so maybe it's quite helpful to sort of select and say, okay, I go for positive news. I recently came across a magazine which was called The Positive Magazine, was only positive news. It was quite interesting. So many positive news were there. I didn't know about it. Alan, climate change is accelerating, especially the most vulnerable, which are at the same time also least responsible for the climate change, are being affected most. It's quite tragedy sometimes. What gives you hope? And are there special moments at this COP you like to share with us?
Thank you, Golo. And I have to turn to the similar answer that we've already shared. The youth, they give me inspiration. And when I say they, I hope I can still be a part because we can be youthful. And I'm going to come back to that idea. But the youth are going through an education process where they're learning rapidly about solutions, what they can do. They're picking up their own toolkits about how they can apply their skills toward the climate situation. And so we have a lot of opportunity in even in solar cookers there's so much room for creativity and to make improvements, not only on the cooker itself, but on how it's brought to a community. So there's a lot of opportunities there. Reconnecting with the Indian Youth Climate Network, who is here at COP28, was a wonderful opportunity to see how they've continued doing their work from 2009, which when I first met them, to what they're doing here now. So we can be a part of the youth as by being youthful, to keep that energy going, that light, and march forward. I just have to conclude by one thing that I'm just absolutely delighted about from our own experience here at COP. We think that this was the very first time that we were able to do solar cooking in the blue zone at COP. And we did this yesterday and the day before at our exhibit. And we used a plant-based diet, which is what I would do anyway. But when you cook in front of delegates, ministers, all the people who are intermingling at the COP, you can show them how it's working. They're able to smell the aroma, and also to see on the inside, those are potatoes, carrots, and understand that aspect as well, that we are choosing to use plant-based diet for the demonstration. But that was extraordinary to be able to do that here in Dubai, where we have the exhibit stands were outdoors and we were bathed in sunshine, so we used it. Thank you very much.
Very lovely story. And you're right, we oldies sometimes feel quite young. At least I don't feel really old or so, and I consider myself also a young person. Sister Jenti, you are a climate veteran and have been attending this COP now for a full week. You had a number of programs and lots of interactions with the delegates. What's your impression? Is there finally a growing understanding that the root of climate change lies within us? Our thoughts, our emotions, maybe the karma of the past have to be resolved, and only then can we bring a positive change. Can you share your insights with us? Is there a trend change in the COP?
I'd love to say yes, but I have to say that it's still quite a novel, strange idea to most people. I'm lucky that I get involved with people who are on the same wavelength. And so, but I find that I'm speaking to the converted, people who already believe these ideas. Out of the 84,000 people that you've said are there, and yes, you can see them when you're out in the passages and they're walking up and down, you can see it's a huge, huge number. Or when you look at the car park and you see what's going on there. But the reality is that it's still only a minority that understands the whole concept of spirituality and consciousness and what's going on inside, reaching outside. But the good thing is that UNFCCC has now given faith leaders a platform. This happened yesterday at the Innovation Hub. And so that was the first time in all these years that that's happened. But also just a little while earlier, a few years earlier, the environmental activists were asking people like myself to come on their platform. So these two blocks have shifted. Today I was again with somebody from the International Union of Nature. So again, he was talking about how it's not easy to tell everybody about all of this, but that he himself definitely is very much on that path of understanding that what's going on inside can have an impact on what's going on outside. But it's slow, very slow. But maybe as time moves on, it can accelerate. I'm sure it will.
Sharing, I feel also that moral and ethical standards are becoming increasingly important. And if we all work to strengthen these standards, then of course our actions will change and take the right choices. So slowly, we're coming to the end, and we have a quick last question for everybody. Please, in one word. Apurva, what is your one blessing for this climate conference to become successful?
One blessing would be that at the end of it, we drown out all the noise and something substantial comes out of it.
Substance. Very nice. Sister Genti, what is your blessing for the COP?
Transparency.
Transparency. Yep. Let there be transparency. Alan?
I'll suggest harmony. We have to work together. We have no other choice.
Harmony, peace, transparency. Wonderful. So this brings us slowly to the end of our panel discussion. And Sister Genti, would you like to wrap up this discussion with a short meditation and guide us and take us beyond?
Yeah. I go on a journey within. And as I go inwards, I can feel the peace that lies inside. I go deeper and deeper, connecting with the being that I am, a being of light, a being of peace. And in this awareness, I can sense the presence of the divine, the source of peace, of love, of truth. And I can also look around and see the whole world as my family. And realize that I'm connected with each and every human soul, but also I'm connected with all forms of life, and I'm connected with nature itself. And in this awareness of connection, I send out vibrations of peace. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much to our three panelists. A lot of wisdom has been shared, a lot of inspiration. Wonderful. So this brings us to the end of this panel discussion. And I'd like to mention also our patrons, the Brahma Kumaris, the Kalpataru Tree Plantation Project, the Brahma Kumaris Environmental Initiative, Yogis for Future, Radio Madhuban, and India Care Trust. Special thanks also to the Raja Yoga Center here in Dubai, which is hosting this event. And thanks also to the many, many, many helpers which make this possible and work quite for some time behind the scene. Please join us tomorrow for another session of our climate studio here from Dubai. And for details, please visit our webpage, www.echo.brahmakumaris.org. You will find all details of the speakers and the next sessions. And last not least, thanks very much to you, our audience. You stayed all the time with us, and I hope you got inspired for the future. Thank you very much, and goodbye and good night from Dubai.